Hey, what is going on, everybody out there? My name is Jakejames Lugo. Hopefully, you guys have been enjoying your PAX online with all the panels that have been going on right now. Welcome to How the FGC Can Adapt and Evolve Beyond COVID-19. This whole panel going to be all about the fighting game community, about COVID-19, and a whole bunch of other stuff in relation to all of that. We got an all-star panel, as you guys could tell. Most of you out there that are big fans of the FGC or the fighting game community know all these individuals on here, but we're going to go through the motions, introduce our entire all-star panel of great people that decided to be a part of this conversation. So first, we got OG, triple OG, Mr. James Chen, who, again, FGC historian, does a whole bunch of stuff, Ultra Chen TV, fighting game commentary, with a whole bunch of events. James, what's good? How you doing? Welcome.
Doing pretty good. Thanks for having me here. Excited.
Awesome. And then also, of course, we got Justin Wong, again, professional player, streamer, content creator, now doing a whole bunch of stuff. Justin, how you doing?
What's up, man? I ain't a professional player. I'm just a player, you know what I mean? Just a consistent streamer. But other than that, man, just keeping busy, trying to make some magic happen during this. But other than that, man, thank you for having me for this. But yeah, don't forget,
Awesome.
I'm not a pro player.
Awesome. Well, you're modest out here. Here beating people down online and stuff. But of course, we also got Alex Jebailey, CEO. Oh no, I guess what is it, director or founder of CEO? Because again, I always say like CEO of CEO, and it just sounds weird. Like to
me. I mean founder and president of CEO Gaming, but yeah, CEO just sounds so much better. And yeah, fighting game fan all my life and organizer, and that's why we're all here. And all these guys I've worked with or played against in tournament, so we have a long history together as well.
Which is awesome. Welcome. And then, of course, we got Ultra David, another half of Ultra 10 TV, does a whole bunch of commentary and a bunch of different events. Again, he knows about a bunch of stuff. He does a ton of things. All these guys have done a ton of things. But David, welcome. Appreciate you for joining the panel and stuff. What's good?
Hey, yeah. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy. So now that we got all that out the way, again, we got a lot of important stuff to talk about, and we only got so much time to dive into it. So we're talking about COVID-19, obviously in relation to the fighting game community, because COVID-19 has affected everybody in a very severe and a very real way. Pretty much our entire world, and just, not just gaming, but everything at this point has been affected by it, has changed in a very severe, big way. So for us, all of us that are into the fighting game community that are, again, different aspects of it. I mean, me as a player, as a fan of it, you guys as commentators, as, professional players, as content creators, as TOs, as people that have directed events and organized events, we all have different perspectives about this type of stuff. But one of the biggest things I think that we could kind of start off with this conversation is, what is COVID-19? What has been the biggest effect of COVID-19 with the fighting game community? So anybody who wants to jump in now, to kind of kick off the conversation, feel free to jump in. So what's been the biggest effect of COVID-19?
I mean, I'll start by saying it's taken away the most important and valuable thing about our community is getting together and playing fighting games. And, compared to most other esports, which, the PC games like the CSGOs of the world, the League of Legends, their focus is people playing at home and online. And with fighting games, we've always had our history of just coming together, discovering new tech, playing for, either whether it's huge prizes from the Pro Tours or just for the pride of beating your opponent and stuff. And that being taken away from us has probably been the most painful, to not be able to get together. And now, luckily, a lot of old school games are coming back with online play and all that, but it's just not there compared to other sports. So Justin can probably chime in as a retired top player of how it's different now for you. You're a player, if you want to enter a lot of tournaments, you could do it all from your house if you wanted to, but it's different, right?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely different. Obviously, like Jebailey said, we traveled a lot, right? We pretty much travel once every 1 week, 2 weeks. It's definitely a monthly trip around the world in general, right? It's kind of like if Street Fighter, when you go through the game, you're going, you see the little plane traveling around USA, Japan, Asia, we actually do that in real life. You know what I mean? Our games, our community is based off just meeting up, going to the tournaments, and just playing right there in person. So the fact that we lost it, and obviously our netcode for current modern games aren't the best compared to some other games, it really does hurt our community, because one, the pro tours in general just got, it just kind of just lost its flair in terms of okay, this is going to be the Europe's premiere, it's going to be the Asia premieres, the ranking events from USA, right? So we really did live on an airplane, right? All of us, right? Jebailey ran all tournaments of the Dreamhacks. He was going to Europe all the time for Dreamhacks, running CEO. Like I'll see like David and James like every week at like all the USA like ranking and premier tournaments, right? So now we don't have that anymore. So I would say that's been, it's been different because now I'm just like, man, usually I'm on a plane.
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
So let me ask this. Let me ask this then over to James and to David. I mean, what could there have been really anything that anybody could have prepared for this? I mean, this obviously happened so suddenly for pretty much every industry out there, but even so, I mean, granted, we do have online play or online
Sorry,
the FGC really prepared for this or really been, not really expected or anything of the sort?
Could we have prepared better? I think that the
Yeah,
only
James?
way that we could have prepared better really is if the devs had put in better netcode earlier. Now it seems like some of them are thinking about doing that more. Some games have had it, but now it seems like there is more of a trend. It's coming out in some more games. More developers are even talking about it. But if that process had happened a couple of years ago, and now new games that just came out this year were to have had that, I think that's how we could have prepared better. Other than that, we're not any more resilient, there's no reason to think that, than other industries or communities that are primarily based about meeting up in person, right? So there was just going to be negative effects. I mean, it was just, it's something that we had to deal with just like everybody else. And it's hard to have planned for what is a once in a century thing. It's really tough. It's tough from a bunch of different angles. As a lawyer, I work with some of the broadcasters and organizers and teams, and I've been writing their contracts for years, and we haven't had to think about this kind of thing. We think about like, what if an earthquake happens? What if
Hurricane in
a plane
Florida
crash happens? Yeah, hurricane, right? Exactly. There are things that we think to put in a contract. I had never seen somebody put in global pandemic as a reason to cancel a contract. Literally never seen it in my 10 years of being a lawyer until now. So it's just not something that I think really we could have planned for a lot better as a community.
Yeah, and one tip I can give other people from my experience, because I've postponed CEO to December back in March, where I'm hoping like, God, 9 months away, this should get better. It's 2020. We have the technology and the speech. And so the hotel, never had global pandemic. We have a thing called force majeure, where if something out of your control, but you got to kind of get granular. And so with pandemic, when I moved it to December, like if you have a pandemic that affects, and this is the wording that just makes it simple. It's, if you have a pandemic that's affecting travel and, having to follow CDC guidelines on top of what you already do for an event, just change it. You can't do it. So it changed my perspective to now put in every contract I ever sign again, like global pandemic, I'm not liable, if I can't run this, because as an organizer, you don't want to take a chance on something like this. And it would be so much easier if the government did its thing and took it out of our hands and go, no public events for 2 years. And then like, okay, but now it's like, wear a mask, don't wear a mask. And as an organizer, like, when do I start planning the next event? Like, I can't even put a time frame on when I can think about going, hey, sponsors, here's my event. Hey, staff, get ready to fly down here. So you couldn't prepare for it. You really couldn't from my end. Because again, we're in a country where we're the land of the free. And you just think that we've been so spoiled with our dinners, our big food and all that, and our easy to connect and travel. And now
it's all gone.
It's all gone. And so things are going to change in a weird way when they do come back. But the FGC has always been one of the strongest communities to just bounce back. And, I've ran huge events. I've run small events. We can adapt to how our community responds. And if they want big events again, we'll build back up to it and everything will be back to normal. But what David said, like, I wish the devs put better netcode, and that would have changed a lot of things for the better on our end to be home in the meantime.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that I think is kind of important to talk about, because, we're talking about how COVID is affecting the fighting game community. And obviously, just like everybody else, there's been a lot of negative effects. But, if we want to try to take a silver lining out of this, if we do want to try to find a positive in just the scope of the fighting game community, it really has put netcode on the forefront of the conversation. I mean, I don't know what it is about fighting game devs, but they've all been kind of very allergic to talking about netcode. Like they don't seem to address how bad the netcode is, and game after game, especially from the Japan developers, have just been unplayable online for the most part. But in just the recent, for example, Dragon Ball panel, little roundtable thing, the producer was talking about rollback netcode. The developer of Fighting EX Layer has now put in rollback netcode. Guilty Gear Strive is putting in rollback netcode. We've had Harada talking about rollback netcode on Twitter and such. And so, that's the positive part about this, is that maybe because we were kind of spoiled by being able to play offline and enjoy the games that way, but the focus on online, I don't think, was strong enough. And hopefully this does start to convince everybody to start using rollback netcode, implement it correctly and quality. And hopefully in the future that means the online experience for our games will be better, because like Justin mentioned, or Jebailey mentioned, all the old school games are coming back through, Fightcade and such. And even I'm like super involved in trying to do all this Parsec cloud gaming stuff just to try to get decent netcode for games with terrible netcode. So it's really kind of put a microscope on that facet, which is weirdly like number one, number two most important thing for our community, yet somehow had never really been addressed.
So let me ask you this then. Now that things have happened, and now we're in the midst of like all this at the current moment. Obviously, we had the Capcom Pro Tour stuff that happened not too long ago, or at least some online competition at this point, because obviously people are going to complain, obviously, with the online connections or just the way that those type of matches and competitions go out and stuff. I mean, what do we do? What do organizations or like big publishers or just people that are making these games do to kind of, make the best of it at the current moment?
It's just a tough it's just a tough decision for a lot of these companies, because they don't want to cancel their whole year, right? They still want to be involved in the community, so they have to run just a Pro Tour online. And CPT Online, they also had online events from the past. It's just not as much, right? They're just based off just like ranking points and everything. So now, because there's a global pandemic, right? In order to have a Capcom Cup Grand Finals, they have to do that. The whole CPT has to be based online. They have to reward, like, okay, you qualify for Capcom Cup based from online. So, like, I understand from that perspective, and then other developers are following suit, right? You have Arc System doing their online, Soul Calibur's doing their online, Tekken's doing their online. Everyone's going to be doing online. It's just that I really did wish that before they had this whole Pro Tour thing, they focused more on netcode to make it more perfect, to avoid situations where people get angry or whatever, and like the kind of like gray area of the whole, this netcode is kind of sucks, I don't want to play it. And that's also another reason why I personally do not play online tournaments. I have not entered any online tournaments this year, and I refuse to, because it's not being addressed at all, or at least it's not being implemented yet.
Do you think
with like it's big headache?
With
There's sides to it, right? Like there's the side of a developer, which is the side that has to do with netcode programming, that sort of underlying aspect of the game, and then there's the side of the developer or the publisher, which has to do with running tournaments. And so if we're talking about Street Fighter V, where Capcom has these two sides, right? And the people who are running the tournaments, who are running CPT, they're not the ones who have any control over whether there's good netcode or not. That's just it's unrelated for them. Right. So what I want, really, obviously, like Justin was saying, like we have been saying, netcode, important, improve it, right? Obviously. If that's not there, then what I really want is for the people who are running CPT and the other Pro Tours to recognize that we're playing online, and that needs to be something that they take into account when they come up with decisions. So for an example, recently Punk got mad online after having played against Alex Myers. He said the connection was really bad. He got really mad about it. Capcom ended up punishing him for that. I mean, he did break some rules, and so I understand in a sense. On the other hand, he is playing the game that Capcom has put out, and that is not a good online game. And I really want Capcom to recognize that in its decisions. The people running the esports side must recognize that this is a limitation, and they have to tailor their decisions accordingly, in my view. So I think that there are two ways that this could be better. Both the netcode itself could be improved, and the sort of community relations, tournament management, organization could be improved in a way that recognizes that we are playing these sort of flawed online games.
Yeah, and with Street Fighter,
Now, interesting that you bring that up.
Yeah, Jay, and
No, go ahead.
what I was gonna say is, yeah, like Capcom has always kind of led the way in fighting games, right? CPT was probably one of the first official fighting game pro tours. CO was actually one of the first streams ever on the Capcom Fighters stream. Do you guys think, as fans, right, take out the fact that we work in the industry and we've run all these events with Ono, the changing of the guard, right? Do you think maybe he was personally a big proprietor of like why the netcode wasn't being improved? And do you think that this is now going to be the change of the focus? Because as soon as Capcom does something like netcode is our number one focus, all these other fighting game companies, I think, are going to follow suit. Outside of, if you notice, it's the American developers that are always at the forefront with netcode, Killer Instinct, and then obviously Mortal Kombat improved and switched over to rollback. So what do you guys think? Like, do you think our next game, it's too late for Street Fighter 5 and when Street Fighter 6 comes out, that the focus will be the online?
Yeah, they already have a pretty good online play in Marvel Infinite, so I would think that the next Capcom game that comes out is going to be, it should be good regardless of who is in control.
No.
I mean, honestly, it's not too late for Street Fighter 5. I mean, in some crazy world, someone out there already fixed the netcode, and it's already existed out there, and we already had a pretty decent solution.
Yeah.
There's options on the table.
Imagine the final Street Fighter 5.
I like that. That patch was really good, but didn't that patch also made it where like PS4 players?
It broke it because you can't patch the PS4 version too.
PS4.
But the thing is,
crossplay, right?
Yeah.
the thing about it is, if it was an official patch, then it would also jump on the PS4 version, and then it would have fixed crossplay. The only reason why crossplay didn't work is because you could only patch the PC version.
Yeah.
But if they just took exactly what Altimore did with his patch and ported it to PS4, it would have worked.
I mean, that's what happens, man.
And then we would be having a very different combo.
The community is saving the FGC, right? With all these different patches, all these different programs, right? Like Fight K2 getting better, the No DC Bear, connecting all these people to play some like the retro games. Like it's just the community's just doing their stuff.
You know what would be amazing, guys? You know what would be amazing if the final Street Fighter 5 character was just a netcode. And the character's name was netcode, and it's just like matrix numbers on the screen. It's like Seth.
Let me touch on this then, because I want to go back to something that was interesting that David brought up, and the idea about the sense of like Capcom or the companies interact with the community, and I think that brings up also something else we should touch on. And again, that is part of like the catalyst that is COVID with everything else. This idea that we're kind of paying attention a little bit more to like the conduct of players or the people online that are part of the the FGC, especially some of the bigger names and stuff. I mean, do you guys feel like now we've really kind of like hyper focused a little bit more on the way that we conduct ourselves, as part of the fighting game community, as like maybe larger players, and the way that maybe consequences, you were mentioning before with Capcom Pro Tour punishing Punk for him like venting out pretty much of like how he felt about the online play and everything else that went on with that. Do you feel like that's going to be a trend that continues forward, like now after COVID-19?
Yeah, it has to be, because one of the things that COVID has done is it's kept us all in our homes, and we're just sitting here thinking, and we're sort of stewing in our own juices, and we're thinking about all the stuff that has happened that has been bad to us or that we've done to other people. And I really think that that's a big part of why all of the terrible news came out about so many people in this time, is that we're all sort of stewing at home, and the expected negative consequences of showing up in person to an event after having outed somebody, which is a big fear that many people have, justly, right? It was not going to happen anymore, right? There's no offline events, so there's the consequences for speaking out are less, and so people are doing it finally, which is great, right? Super supportive of that. Now that that's out of the bottle, it cannot go away. It's too late now. I'm really happy that it's happened, and it's something that we absolutely have to continue. It's not just in the FGC. Obviously, that's a larger world thing as well. But I do definitely think that it is in significant part due to us being at home during COVID times that we have started that conversation, and even after we get to go back to offline events, there's no way that focus goes away. I hope it doesn't in any case.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad the way things are going, and like David talked about with the Punk and Alex Myers situation. At first, I wasn't really on board with the decision that Capcom made to punish Punk because it was an emotional outburst. I'm an emotional guy. I totally get it. But at the same time, it was a violation of code of conduct. They have the code of conduct rules. And what the FGC has been notorious for is just not adhering to that, not really being super wishy-washy when it comes to that kind of thing. And I think this is a kind of a good sign, though, that we start showing people that code of conduct and these things will be adhered to now, because that will start to try to put people in and again, I don't want to say put people in line, because that makes it sound like we're restricting people. And I always hate that negative connotation of it. Basically, what it means is that we're trying to create our environment to be more welcoming, so more people can join, more people can feel safer. We're expanding the audience of our scene.
I want to ask something about that as like an offshoot of that, because that's a very interesting point, James. And I want to shoot it over to Alex, because again, as someone that is an event organizer and that would know about this stuff, or at least have a good perspective with this, do you feel like with some of these, like the consequences with Punk, or just like, some of the resolution with some of those things like that when it comes to conduct and stuff, do you think that sometimes maybe now, especially during the time of COVID, that could be a little bit too severe, or do you think it's not severe enough? Or in the way that Capcom or other companies handle it? I
mean, as an organizer, when a Pro Tour comes in and they set their own rules and conduct, it's a lot easier for them to manage that instead of the organizer, managing. And we, most of the established events already have a code of conduct. Now, it's really hard that, well, for one, when I run a Smash GG online tournament, half the people don't even read the rules, and then they get DQ'd from auto check-in. So a lot of people aren't going to read everything that, for any granular detail. Now, me personally, I think it was a bit overboard, especially with the emotions involved. But as an organizer, there was also the addition of him going after the organizer, Alex Valle, through Discord, that Twitter didn't really see. And that was Capcom stepping up and, protecting the organizer and letting these players know. And probably in their own indirect way of not saying, yes, we know our netcode's bad, but don't, they're not pointing it out, but they're at least showing you that they're paying attention and they're handling the TOs and looking out for their own people within that rule set. As an organizer, again, we deal with people all the time being DM'd of, hey, this person's made me feel uncomfortable. What do we do? And every situation is honestly different. So it's hard for us to encompass everything. And Ultra David's been helping out behind the scenes with putting this onto writing for a bigger code of conduct, but it's like every single situation's different, or maybe somebody that's a part of this panel has also had their own situation, and just so many different things. At the end of the day, I do enjoy when Pro Tours follow through with their rules, because that takes that pressure off of the organizers. And then the players, for most of our established events, Justin as a player, he has respect from the community as a player. These two are some of the best commentators. I've been an organizer that's always been transparent. But when a company who's actually making the game sets their own rules and actually adheres to them, I think that benefits all of us, and it shows everyone that, we kind of got to follow suit. And a lot of the stuff is coming to light because we're all stuck at home. But I think at the end of this, like, a lot more people are going to be following the rules and paying attention, and, because we just want to create a fun, safe environment and then let the Pro Tours handle their own actual rules within the game. That kind of went all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said, Alex. But it's just that I'd like David was saying earlier, like there needs to be a better code of conduct, especially for like online outbursts, just because it is really bad netcode. And yeah, I mean, and if you did watch the matches from Punk's side, it was really terrible. And he did say really bad things, obviously, to Valle and Myers, but he deactivated Twitter. He took like some hours cool off, reactivated, apologized right away, saying that he messed up to Valle at least, right? And then obviously, pretty much the next day, he said sorry to Myers as well. And then after that, boom, he got destroyed. He got destroyed right there, right? So I'm not sure if that was like him doing it because Capcom told him to, or he did it and then he still got punished for it. You know what I mean? So that's just something from my end, that those type of situations happen pretty often, where you can get mad at somebody because like this happened to you, and like usually if he got outplayed, then like all right, he got outplayed. But like the fact that he told me that game 1 Myers outplayed me. He said Myers outplayed me game 1. But then game 2, game 3, that's when everything just went crazy. And like I can understand from his perspective. And I told him that's another reason why personally I don't enter online tournaments. The only time I entered an online tournament was this old Street Fighter 4 tournament hosted by Panda X Gaming. I won that tournament, but I was so angry winning that tournament because, oh my god, I was raging. Thankfully I was not streaming because I was saying such bad words everywhere, cursing a storm, and like just right there, like I was like, you know what, this is too much negative energy for me, and I'm not going to enter an online tournament ever again because of situations like this.
So let me kind of shift.
The one thing that I
James.
just want to tack on in there is that, like I said, I don't mind people getting mad. I have complete sympathy and empathy for Punk because when online netcode is bad, it drives me nuts too. The biggest danger, honestly, is just social media, right? If you get mad at this kind of thing, turn off your stream, turn off your social media, and try to stay away for just a little bit. You need someone to vent to, and because of quarantine, we're all trapped in our house. There's no one to vent to, so you vent online, and I think that's where a lot of the trouble comes in.
I think Capcom should easily just add one rule, like you get one rant about our netcode as long as it's not one rant about our netcode per tournament as long as it's not derogatory.
Just one.
Yeah, you get one F. You get to
get
say
one for
one
the
bad
year.
word and netcode in a tweet.
I'm telling you, man, the match looks really bad. Like it's terrible if you look at the match, man.
But like, ask you guys as
So
players. Well, real quick, like the mashing thing, right? Is that a thing? Like, can you mash and affect the other player's ability to play?
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, you can, but
it has to be faster than what he was doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally like you're trying to shake out a dizzy.
Yeah.
You just have to see things waterfall of inputs, and that's not what Myers was doing. So
No, the other match with him versus Iquita, he was mashing like crazy, bro. My man was way faster than Myers, bro. Like, I ran a Father's Day tournament, right, for Street Fighter 5 during Father's Day, and he won the tournament, but it was so hard to commentate the grand finals because it was really looking bad, bro. It was like, I'm like, man, I'm sorry, guys.
All right. Let's move on.
No, I want to shift gears because I gotta get us back on focus over here because again we could talk about this like all day. Okay, but the one thing that I think we should touch on, just in general, as far as COVID-19 is concerned, how do we get back to normal? Like for us, getting back into like local events, offline events, being able to play people in person stuff. How easy or how difficult is that going to be for us to go back to that type of normal? Because obviously, with everything that's been going on for a long time, I mean, obviously that's more dependent on like if it's safe to go out there and actually host things and stuff, depending on the location and such. But like even after all that's okay, like with all this knowledge and all the stuff that we're getting now during COVID at this point, I mean, how do we go back now to that normal in some way?
So before anybody else says anything, I just want to say that we aren't going back to normal. There is no normal. We are going to something very different now, and that's what we should expect, and we should understand that that's a good thing that we're not going back to normal, because normal is not necessarily bad netcode and bad behavior is the normal, and that's not good. So I'd rather us continue to grow and advance. So we're going to do something better, in my opinion. But, that's all I wanted to say first. And then everybody else can jump in.
From my perspective, like, I think until an actual vaccine is out to where one of us can go to a Walgreens or CVS, get a shot, and go, okay, you should be good to go. It's going to be very hard for us to turn to actually just go, hey, this is my live event. Come on out before, because a lot of us are smart, right? We pay attention. And we see what's going on around us, even though we're stuck at home. And until we feel like the news isn't talking about a million cases, also, it's going to be so hard. But the benefit I'm going to see is a lot of our events are going to follow more rules of like more hand sanitizer in general, having it up everywhere, wash your hands like it's a restaurant bathroom when employees walk out and stuff. And
more hygiene.
More hygiene. And I think less people are going to get sick in general, because a lot of us have been to the events and caught a conflu of some kind by either shaking the wrong hand. But I think from a hygienic perspective, Yeah, I haven't been sick actually in like 3 years because I got so used to just, you know, hand sanitizer nonstop. But the normal is gone, I think. A lot more people are going to be more distant from each other. But until it's safe for us to run an event and we don't have like the government going, you need a CDC guideline for even wearing masks. You know, and I think masks can be there for a while. Even Japan over the years, we've all been to Japan. We've seen everyone wear masks naturally as a part of life. Like, I wouldn't mind seeing that around here, like not as a requirement, but you make that decision for yourself, whether it's required or not after COVID. But it's scary times because, again, we cannot plan anything until we know it's safe. And a lot of locals have been popping up and they've been trying their best to keep people distanced and require masks and all that. And just too much negative publicity comes out of it. Like the moment you say I'm doing a local, like me personally, it's not about the money right now. It's about the safety of the attendees. Now, as an organizer, my goal is to not go bankrupt not being able to host an event. It's to basically survive through this. And like
don't get affected by it.
So even if a vaccine came out right away and everyone's cured instantly, we still got to go through the rules and the new normal and the changes. But I think hopefully by next summer we're back to normal and we look back at this and learn from those mistakes and kind of take it from there. Yeah, fingers crossed. Exactly. Trust me, because I've already got like 5 years of events signed. And I'm like, oh.
The real answer, dude, the real answer is that we could go back to normal whenever we want. And that's true because if the government were to really take this seriously and we were to shut down in a way that epidemiologists have been calling for more than half a year at this point, we actually could get to a place that other countries have gotten to where
Thank you.
Almost
That's
zero.
right.
We could do this. Well, look, they've already had offline tournaments in other countries. 2 months ago now, Thailand was having a tournament. It's been happening.
That's true.
Taiwan as well, Hong Kong.
It is happening. We could do these things, but we don't have an effective government to take care of it. That is the problem.
Yeah.
That's not happening. That's not changing minimum until January, plausibly for the foreseeable future. And we just this is the thing that we have to plan for. So what I'm encouraged by is that there are so many more online things. I know it's a bummer to play in, especially for many games, but we are to the extent that there can be a normal, right? James is right. We're not going back to how it was before. To the extent that we can have a sort of regular fighting game community with events, it's online. And in the United States, it's going to be like that for, I mean, Alex, if it's next summer, I'll be real happy about that.
Like me personally,
not. Yeah. If you're in other countries, that timeline may be different for you, but here we're stuck for a while.
Yeah, and the thing is, when events do come back, are other countries going to let their people come to our country?
Right.
You know, even when we do come out of it, like that's not.
I would say it's more of will countries let us in their country?
Yeah, I know. I had a Japan trip in April.
Personally.
Sure.
Because like David said, man, so many other countries are doing better. Every time I talk to like Oil King Gamer B, they said, yo, no one wear masks anymore. We're good. We're 0 cases, right? They're completely back to normal. Taiwan, example, is completely back to normal. Right?
7 deaths.
Yeah,
7 deaths in Taiwan.
Anytime they saw one case, lockdown. Right away, just from one case, lockdown. But USA is just, I don't know. I actually can't see when we're coming back. So now, thinking about that, right? Like, I've been getting so many different emails for like future events already and saying like future gigs and saying, hey, we want to hire you for this, but if you come, would you be willing to take like, you know, a COVID test? And I was like, oh, so that's the norm now, where we have to take COVID tests for working. Yeah. So now for you, Jebailey, are you going to require people to like take COVID tests if you have to do CEO? Just type of thing?
I mean, like,
I think that's a legit question.
Yeah, like say I did December, right? I actually have 2 thermometer scanners I got right at the beginning. Like every time I hear family members, I'm like, hey, test it. But the thing is, and I'm going to be very upfront about this. Let's take gun control, for example, right? Not to get into politics, but like having metal detectors at our events, right? It's almost like if somebody wants to find a way to sneak something in, they're going to find a way when you have thousands of doors at a convention center, something like that. With COVID, it's like you can scan everybody, but that it's almost like a hidden security that you just still don't know, right? Somebody could sneak in without a favor, be asymptomatic, stuff like that. True. So until I feel it's safe, there's no deaths. Like if we went back or locked down and there was like 1 death every state, like every week or something, we would, again, already be back to normal. Now, as an organizer, would I run an event if I had to scan everybody and all that? There's been talks about like events getting infrared scanners, but that's also infringing on your privacy and stuff. And just to see
Really?
you walk in, yeah.
That's a little weird.
I mean, but it's a way to tell somebody's got a fever without scanning them directly. But it's hard because people, it's gonna come down to when a vaccine comes out, the people themselves making the decision. Well, I don't want to get a vaccine, but I want to go to this event. So is it my fault if I were to happen to get sick of, any sort, stuff like that? So until that decision's out of our hands, and that's the worst part about what we do in the entertainment industry. This is all completely out of our hands. We can't do shit. We can't go. We can't announce like, no matter what, guys, you're going to be all safe. And I ran an event the weekend Disney World closed down. I was like up against a wall because I couldn't cancel an event 2 days as everyone was already flying in. So it was a very tough situation to be in. Now, if that event was a week later, after Disney shut down, I would have canceled it no matter what and then dealt with the hotel later. But I was just up against a wall. But a lot of the smart organizers, we know until it's 100% safe or very minimal risk, very minimal risk, people are going to be too scared to go and stuff. And any organizer, is going to keep an eye on that and pay attention to the community and stuff like that. When it comes to a point, everyone's like, the cases are down, let's start traveling. And the government's like, live events, have at it. It's out of our control. And that's the worst part about all this. I can't do what I do.
So let me now, as a good way to kind of wrap up everything, because again, like all this stuff we could talk about for hours. This is a very nuanced conversation, especially with COVID and everything else, not just with us in the FGC, but just the world at this point. Like, again, because everybody's affected by this and everybody's going to have to just, like I said before, just deal up to the point like when we don't have to deal with it anymore, which doesn't look like anytime soon. I want to go through the panel now, starting off with James. I want to know what exactly one thing that you want to see now that, hopefully moving forward into next year and stuff, that you want to see come out of everything now that COVID-19 has happened for the FGC. What is one thing that you personally want to see happen or take place or kind of evolve a little bit more for us as a fighting game community? So let's start off with James and we'll kind of go through the panel.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think the biggest thing for FGC right now is the focus on the net code. Just as a general, because one of the hardest things about growing our community really is just that the online experience is pretty miserable in most games, and it's hard to make our scene grow for that reason. It's not even just the netcode, but the ranked experience in general. But netcode is a great place to start. And, I've made this kind of analogy before. When Evo, for example, switched from arcade to consoles, there was a big stink, and it was a lot of the arcade people were like, console players aren't legit, and all this stuff. And we're kind of at that point again right now where a lot of people are like, well, online players aren't legit. But that's not true. We're seeing a lot of strong players come out of the online scene. Heck, even players like Punk were basically born and raised kind of in an online environment and became strong. And, we're going to get to that point, I think, in a few years from now where online is going to be felt as legit as offline. COVID kind of pushed the timeline of that a little bit faster, but I think that's a good thing. Like I said, the better the online experience, the more people we're going to get into our scene. And, just understanding from a user enjoyment experience standpoint, hopefully the developers start paying attention to that a little bit more. So just focusing on, the FGC in terms of growing player base and making the online play a more enjoyable experience. That's kind of what I'm hoping for.
So let me go now to Alex. Alex, one thing that you want to see, the FGC, gain, or at least something happen out of all of this, now that we're deep into the shit at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think. Imagine we weren't having this conversation or COVID didn't happen. What games would have been updated? Would all that Street Fighter V content already be out? Stuff like that. So I think now that the developers see that the community's stuck at home, we're reading everything, we're yearning for new news and stuff. A lot of communication is going to be more transparent, as they go the announcements, but a little bit more organically shared with us, like they did, as we noticed with that recent Street Fighter announcement of all the characters. And it was a totally different pace from when we've seen it. Usually we would just see a great trailer and the community gets hype. But when you see the developers explaining this is what's coming out, and the one plus I've seen is maybe Street Fighter 6 was going to come out like in December with PlayStation 5 and stuff, but the fact that Capcom kind of spread out all the content across next year helps a lot of us, because now we're stuck home, we're not able to level up in person and stuff. we have a whole nother year that is felt in limbo. But we have a whole nother year to adapt when the new consoles come out, the new games come out. And as an organizer, saves me money this year. Thank God no new game came out, and all these games, like let's take Grand Blue Versus, for example. It was the #1 registered game for CEO this year up until COVID started. And like it was going to have a really special year on offline events. And then, you know, what bad timing. And then, yeah, everything else got delayed after. I'm sure Strive is still set for when it is and stuff. But what I think is going to come out of it, we're going to get more transparency, better scheduling of when games come out, stuff like that. But again, I think we're going to have a lot cleaner, safer events out of this. We're going to take every precaution that we have to, and it's not going to cost a lot. Maybe, yes, getting scanners or stuff if we have to do it. Like, I actually had a dream. This is just a random comment. That December, somehow the election, like, oh, I need to get reelected, guys. Here's the cure, you know, and then everyone starts voting. We all get this cure. And then I'm like talking to the state, like, hey, there's like 2,000 people coming to my event from all across the country. Can we give them all free vaccine shots and, you know, make it like a testing center to where it helps the state and, you know, so stupid things like that. But God, I went off the wall on that. Sorry, my friends, you know me. But, you know, the change, I think. You know, we were already doing online tournaments. CPT had like half of it online and stuff, and it led into these offline events. I think now if the netcode improves, we'll have more of that. Now, from an organizer standpoint, again, it's hard. I cannot move CEO completely to online. This is something we didn't talk about, right? Like if Evo Online had happened, it was free entry, but you could buy like a badge and get a commemorative thing and sent to you. But as an organizer, like we're just outright paying staff to help us put this together, produce it, but we're not getting any revenue in unless we sell merch or something different like that. So one thing I think is going to happen is a lot of the events are going to find other ways to make revenue to kind of help us leading into it. But like people ask you, like, why don't you just do CEO Online and charge? I'm like, who's going to pay $75, $50 to play in their boxers from their bedroom, right? It's like you can't charge these people, and we're learning the right way of hosting these online events with basic prizes. Like with Dreamhack, I do a free entry, $175 prize pool. But that's like a lot of time on our behalf putting it together, stuff like that. And what's going to happen is, you know, once we get back to offline, hopefully sooner rather than later, we're going to have a lot more online events, you know, kind of adding to it, but not fully taking over. So the change I want is just to be back to normal and the developers be more involved with each individual event with the planning and promotion, because we're going to kind of start fresh and we're going to need everyone to remember. Like, I worry that if we don't do an event even next year, it's like, will people remember CEO? And like, is it going to be the dark ages we had after Marvel 2, Third Strike into Street Fighter 4, stuff like that? So yeah, that's my horrible answer.
Good points all around. Definitely, it's good points all around, especially again, because I can relate to that obviously with PAX Online and other online events that originally were large, like, you know, scale, like offline events, but have had to adapt to being online and stuff. But David, talk to me, like one big thing that you want to see, you know, maybe come out of all this stuff with COVID-19, you know, for the FGC, et cetera.
People acting better. That's the most important thing. Wow, really? I mean, that's what we've been thinking about for the last several months now. I guess people really started talking about that stuff maybe in May. So it's been already a few months. That's the most important thing for sure. And in going back and being willing to go back to events, it's not just about having COVID being over. It's about having the feeling of events being safe in other ways too. And while some events did a good job at making that kind of environment happen, many more didn't, and it's just in any case really difficult to do. So I want that to happen from multiple angles. I want players themselves, attendees, to take that seriously, and I want organizers to take that seriously, and I want game rights holders to take that seriously. I want multiple sort of angles at this. And if something happens, as we were talking about earlier, on one of the pro tours, maybe that's handled by them. If it's at an event, or if it's something that could be related to not just an event, but a Discord or some sort of online public gathering, I want us to be a better community for the people who have been in our scene too long. It has not been like that. You know, I've been lucky enough for that not to have directly reared its head for me, you know, but I know way too many people for whom that has happened. And to me, that's the number one thing that we have to fix, and I'm excited to try to work on that. I hope that we do it.
Justin, to all of that, I could definitely agree. And then finally, Justin, one thing that you want to see come out of all of this for the FGC.
You can't ask me as the fourth question when all three of them had the same answer as me. Like first I was like, oh, code. And then Jebailey took my second answer, and then David took my third answer. But I mean, look, those are all like the best points, right? The fact that during COVID we had to go through. Okay, we started talking about netcode way more seriously. Everyone's about it. Even now, developers are all about like, okay, we hear you guys. This is the number one thing. So now, at least the word netcode is in their mind. So that means for future titles, it could mean that we will have better netcode, right? And then for like going back to events, I mean, I really do miss events. I miss events so much. I miss Colin Burger. I miss CEO. I mean, I miss going to Evo, Northwest Majors, ECT. NEC, all these tournaments. I've been just watching old footage. I'm like, man, look at the crowd. I missed that. Like, I missed the intensity, the ring. Like it's really fun. It's really fun to really be there in person. It's really hard to witness that, like online, to get that same energy when watching like online tournaments. But I really do believe that when offline tournaments do come back, it's going to be so amazing. I actually think a lot of people are going to have so much fun. It might be like the kumbaya, like for reals. Like it's going to be such a super vacation. And then the one thing about it is that, like David said, I really do like want respect. Like I want people to just feel like you have to respect everybody. Don't just be a scumbag. The fact that like we know people that were like accused and this actually did happen like back in the day, it kind of sucks. Like I'm just like, bro, like we were having conversations, you met my baby daughter, like I'm mad, like whoa, I'm paranoid now, right? So I really do hope that when we do go back to just offline events, people just are just being more respected. It brings in more people. People don't think that FGC is this and that in a negative sense, because we're not. We're really a big, huge family, but obviously there are going to be some bad eggs in there that just kind of ruins it for other people, because it's, like they make it like only towards that victim, and then that victim is going to get hurt and they're going to feel a certain way, and it ruins their experience and it ruins other people's experience, right? So those three are like the really most important thing. And I would say if I have to add a fourth one, like during COVID, the one thing that I'm really happy to see during COVID is that people didn't give up, right? The fact that we did not give up and we started running our online tournaments, everyone started streaming. The streaming in terms of just the numbers are going higher and higher for just fighting games. And you could just see that the love of fighting game is there, and it's not there, and people are just not there for the money, right? Obviously, money is always good. It's always nice, but you could actually see the passion from people streaming nonstop, back and forth, just running tournaments and just running streams and running like just like sets with everybody. Like obviously, you see Ultra Chen always running their weekly shows, but they're doing their individual streams all the time now as well too. Jebailey running his tournament streams. He's entering online tournaments when you don't even need to. Right, I'm streaming all the time as well, and then you see other streamers doing the same thing, and I really love that. Like, I feel like this has actually been the most that I actually been stream monstering, just other people's personal channels. Like, I mean, like the fact that I was able to see Tupperware versus Flow on James Chen Generation Spacing stream was like the most amazing thing in the world. I mean, I felt some salt in there, but it was a great watch of salt. You know what I mean? And then Danny Pham doing the heat check sets; those are great, right? And even Sanford Kelly, man, like I really do like his rants, man. Those are really fun. And I actually was able to play Duck Doe, like a person that I haven't played in tournaments since the year 2000. Like in a long set, like I mean, like they're like, even though COVID definitely like gave us a big L, we're not taking the L. We're not just gonna just sulk and do nothing. We're going to fight back. You know what I mean? We're gonna try to make sure that FGC's still here when things are better, that people still remember us and we're still fighting. So overall, I mean, yeah, I know 2020 does suck, but I still look forward to the future where fighting game community is still going to be there for us.
Yeah, and two comments I have to add to that. The one thing, I think everybody, even if you weren't a celebrity before, you're going to be a celebrity at these events. We're all going to go to an event. Like, I honestly guarantee, I don't care where in the world it is, the first major event I'm going to go to just to be there, just to see people and be like, hey, I've been watching you on Zoom calls for the last year. Can I get an autograph? Shit like that. And then the other one, the thing that we're going to notice the moment we're back is, as much as good of a time online tournaments can be, when you look back at some of the best memories, Evo Moment 37, right? the first Street Fighter 5, like the Tokido and Infiltration fighting each other, like in Ryu coming out of nowhere to win that tournament. Like, those memories last a lifetime. Name one memory outside of somebody complaining about netcode from an online tournament in the last 6 months. Like, they don't even compare, you know? So the moment we're back in live, like, I really think we're all going to be an even better family together. Hopefully the games are popular and we're getting those, you know, those people that only come to compete, not to win. Like, I hope they come back and haven't fallen off. Or even me, I'm scared to run tournaments because I'm going to be a Fall Guys professional player by the end of the year. Like, that's all I'm playing, you know, and that should be a fighting game. But, you know, when we come back, like, all the online stuff will be great keeping us together, but I think we're all going to be ready for it. And again, as all these guys have said, like, just better community. Now that, you know, I am happy that a lot of people have come forward and we're doing our best to protect them for the future. And it just opens doors that I used to make a tweet every once in a while. I have now updated CEO Gaming's policies, and it was a twit longer, and you click it. Rule number 1, don't be an asshole. And then everyone would reply like, yeah, that covers everything, you know? So little things like that. I think we will come back. It just, again, as an organizer, a lot of stuff is out of our control. I'm a facilitator of events with Pro Tours and players and all that, but we're hoping that the momentum that fighting games had up until this year, like Combo Breaker's growth after the last couple years, how massive of a public, you know, Persona Evo had and ESPN, stuff like that, that we didn't lose that momentum. And I hope we can just get right back to it as soon as possible. So that's the hope. And, you know, the dream of fighting games, because if we didn't love what we do, we would not be on this right now. After, I think, I met Justin 2009 for the first time, and we've all met each other at live events, you know, and so we miss that. And I hope the momentum continues and we get back to where we were, and we don't have to bitch about netcode anymore. You know, hey, I have an offline tournament, I'm going to go win that, and then maybe I'll enter the free online tournament because I got nothing better to do. So I'm waiting for that option again.
You know, I'll just say one thing I never thought I would say. I kind of miss hotels right now.
A lot of valid
Oh my
points.
god,
I miss exhaustion of running these events. So, and the one thing I will say, like, people that have watched me have seen the wrestling shows.
A lot of valid points.
I was going to say real quick about, like, the live wrestling shows and the crossovers. It was to get the name out of fighting games to more communities to see that. I think, again, we're going to be good on our own. We've always been good on our own, whether esports have taken off or, you know, gotten bigger and stuff. And I think CPT still doing an online tournament was a great way to do it, because I was in the early talks of, hey, we might have to cancel the Pro Tour for CEO, and like, shit, what's going to happen? And as soon as that happened, everyone else kind of followed suit. So I think with online, again, we'll come back stronger and have offline and online be good by the time everything's normal again.
Yeah, like I was going to say before, like, all valid points, all good points all around. Again, this is a very nuanced conversation, and like one that we could just continue on for hours. But as always, with all good things, they always got to come to an end, unfortunately. So hopefully you guys watching this now for PAX Online really enjoyed the entire conversation. Because again, there's so much stuff from all these great people on here, all these peeps that love fighting games as much as I do, probably even more in a lot of instances and stuff. But let's run down the panel where everybody can be found on social media. You know, James, where can everybody find you right now on socials?
Basically, it's Jchenzor on everything, on Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, and then also Ultra Chen TV on YouTube and Twitch as well. So it's either Ultra Chen TV or Jchenzor. Those are always going to be the two places you can find me.
Justin.
Oh, okay. Twitter and Instagram
Awesome.
for
David, because oh no, that's what it is.
Carry on, Justin. Where can I find you on YouTube, buddy, for all your unboxings?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram for Jwong, Jwong with 3 Gs, and then also on twitch.tv/Jwong with 3 Gs and youtube.com/Justin Wong. I got a special hookup to get that name down, so I'm pretty happy about that.
Yeah. So I'm Alex Jebailey, twitch.tv/CEO Gaming. It used to be CEO Jebailey, but now that I've done Dreamhack and other stuff. But the one thing I'll also give to you guys is to communicate with us. Like, we're here at home, and if you want to get more involved in fighting games, if you want to lead to how to get into Fightcade and join and play yourself from home, just reach out to any of us here. Twitter's mostly where I do all my stuff, and at Jebailey, which is my last name, but I like just having that name, so that works. I think, yeah, most of us are the only guys that have our real names as our nicknames, right, Justin?
Yeah, I mean, I just never thought of a cool handle.
Yeah.
You know,
He
like
just did with the cool alias.
Yeah.
I was like thinking like Swordsman 626 or something, but I was like, you know what, I'll stay with my name instead.
You
I
made
would
the right-
I would have called you Chinatown Fair MSP or something.
The original plan.
Your turn, David.
Hey, all right. Yeah, you can catch me at Twitter at UltraDavid, which it says right here, and I stream at UltraChen TV. Those are the two.
Awesome. And then you guys can find me at Jakejames Lugo on Twitter, Gamers with Gains channel on YouTube. Again, doing a bunch of different fighting game / other types of gaming related content. You guys can find all this great fighting game content that these guys do. Again, I appreciate you guys for being part of the panel, being part of this conversation. Hopefully everybody gets a kick out of it. But from all of us here, we will talk to all of you again very soon. Peace out and stay epic, everybody. Thanks for watching.